Hey kid, do you want to get high? I've got some acoustic sounds here that'll take you to another level. Or maybe you want some Van Morrison. Oh gee, these sounds are gonna get you high.
It sounds kind of scary, mister.
Well, hey now, welcome to Fitz's Electric Bar. The sun is coming out. I'm having to squint almost a little bit, which is fantastic because here in the Pacific Northwest, if we can get some sunny weather in March, it's a happy, happy time. So this episode, as you may note from the intro, is kind of related to music as addiction or collecting as addiction. So what I thought I would do this episode is call out albums that specifically were recommended by people that I had no familiarity with, heard them on one or more of the VC channels, and decided to purchase. And these are records that I've really enjoyed. And this is where I watched for free and then I paid later for it. One of the subtexts of this video is also a little bit of my existential not angst, but is thinking a little bit about this idea of buying music and listening to music. If I am, there are times when I acquire stuff and I kind of put it in my library, in my catalog, and I think, well, this will be really nice to have to listen to later, and maybe I get into it and maybe I don't. And sometimes I feel like the purchase is separate from the enjoyment of it. And that's the part that I sort of feel like I maybe need to keep in check. So one of the things that others have talked about on this, in the VC community, is the idea of maybe slowing down on the purchases and spending more time actually really going deep on the music. And one of the things I find is that when I thin out the pile of music that's in front of my stereo, because of its proximity, it's the stuff that I go to sort of for the most part on any given day of listening. And having less of that and playing things a little more, or, making sure I get into the side C and side D of the double albums and things like that to really appreciate the music and spend a little bit more time doing ultimately deep listening as opposed to superficial or focusing on collecting a little bit. I've said this before, I don't really consider myself a collector. I do like having a library of music. I do like having many different recordings that I can go to, such that every one of my millions of nuanced moods can be met in any moment. But anyway, so this is about, you're all enablers and you're all feeding my music habit. And so here are some of the things that I've got based on some of your recommendations. So one record that I've seen many times mentioned in the VC community is the Miles Davis, Jack Johnson. And I was a bit reluctant at first to get this record, and I'll tell you a little bit why. I still have not been able to really enjoy or be able to comprehend, and ultimately it's all about enjoyment, right? Bitches Brew and some of his more electric stuff. So I thought that this would be one that I would have a difficult time getting into. And I was in a local store and got this in the used section, Jack Johnson, Miles Davis. So it's the soundtrack to, I believe, the movie of Jack Johnson, tribute to Jack Johnson. This has on guitar, John McLaughlin, who I've been gradually getting into. Sometimes the Mahavishnu Orchestra material is just a little too out there for me, but other stuff, like I think it's called My Goals Beyond, and some of the John McLaughlin stuff and some of the Mahavishnu Orchestra I really enjoy. Anyways, this one was kind of a revelation. I just love this record, and it is rocking. Like, it has got a real edgy guitar sound to it, and it's very, I don't know if rock and roll is the right word, but it's certainly not jazzy in a traditional sense. But I really like this record, again, recommended by many others in the VC community. Another one that was recommended by, I guess it was Mike over at the In Groove, and he talks about this being the record that got him into jazz. And He speaks very strongly about this record, and I have to admit, I haven't really given it a deep listen. This would fall in the category of me acquiring a whole bunch of music at one time and having it sort of off to the side and getting ready to listen to it. So I don't know this one as well, but I was motivated to purchase this. You know, when somebody describes why they love something or why it really turned them on to a whole genre, and they're very eloquent with it, that can be enough for me to dive in. So I got this. Thanks, Mike. A little bit thinner in the pocketbook. I've been a Nick Cave fan for quite a while, but this was actually a bit of a hole in my collection. I think a few people lost mixtapes. Todd, as well as Mazzy, have recommended this. And I hadn't realized that it is kind of a ballad album. And I, for those of you who know me, I have a penchant for really good, strong ballad / sad music. A little bit like John and the Digital Gramophone, you know, Sat Fat Bastard. There's elements of that in my DNA, I guess. This record is great, and it's got on it Into My Arms, People Ain't No Good. It's a mood, and it's maintained throughout, you know, a consistent mood. Awesome album, and The Boatman's Call. Another one that's quite recent, but the Jazz Bums, I enjoy their show. I enjoy their enthusiasm. I enjoy their sense of discovery, and I enjoy the fact that they recognize that they're still early in their knowledge of jazz, and so they're acquiring that knowledge through their enthusiasm for music. But one of the ones that I guess they were talking about their favorite records or jazz records from 2023, and Philippe had mentioned this album, The Circling Sun, Spirits, and this is a New Zealand band, I guess. In this case, I wanted to listen to it first, and I listened to it on the streaming services on Tidal, and really enjoyed this record. And it was actually a little difficult at first to get. It seemed like it was very expensive and limited supply. And then I think they started to, you know, repress it, and just got this in the last month or so and have really enjoyed this. Reminds me a little bit of Pat Metheny, although it's not fair probably to compare it to Pat Metheny, but it's got a lightness, and I don't mean that in a pejorative way. It's got a lightness that is very energetic, kind of a spiritual up feeling to it, and just some great playing, and through A and B sides. Really, really good. The Circling Sun is the band, and Spirits is the name of the record. In the summer, Glen Kellaway from The Basement was talking a little bit about seeing Tedeschi Trucks. And I am familiar with the music and Derek Trucks, and being a Grateful Dead fan, certainly there's some an adjacency there. A lot of their music is blues based, and I've mentioned before, I'm not, strictly speaking, really a big blues fan, but they're not straight up blues. They're the kind of blues that I tend to like, which is ultimately kind of one generation away from, you know, traditional blues. And of course, Derek Trucks is a really good guitarist. Really love the way he plays. I find he's very emotive and powerful. So they did a series of records that, I think it was 4 records. This is the I Am the Moon first. I guess it's all called I Am the Moon. And this is the first of 4 records. This one's called The Crescent. Glenn had said this was the one to get of the 4. He thought it was the best. I ended up getting all 4. And at this point in time, and I'm still diving into the records, but I would agree this one is really good. Really broad types of, well, there's some really high energy driving music, and then some gorgeous, more mellow tunes, obviously featuring, you know, the guitar playing of Trucks and Susan Tedeschi. But this is a really nice record. Glen Kellaway, you got me hooked. Thank you very much. And this one's from Sonic Obsession, and Steve McLeod had talked about this Noel Gallagher record. I'm a big Noel Gallagher fan, more than an Oasis fan. Noel Gallagher and his Flying Birds. Awesome cover. I really love this sort of sepia tone look. but this is his most recent record, and Steve put this one out as one of his favorites from 2023. And I also really like this record. I think Noel is a great singer-songwriter. He's just the master of the catchy hooks, and I think he was the one who really wrote the music for Oasis, if I'm not mistaken, and he and Liam would share vocal duties. I mean, more Liam than probably Noel, but this one has become a big favorite of mine, a nice way to sort of start the day. If I'm heading out the door, I'll put on this record, and it's really, really good. So thank you, Steve. Mazzy has, I think for many of us, Norman Maslov has turned us on to a lot of good music. I find like I'll have playlists of music that he's recommended, and over time I'll listen to that and figure out what I like best. This one he's mentioned a few times, and a jazz record that I just love, a recent reissue on the original jazz classics, the OJC, but Yusef Lateef, Eastern Sounds. When he talked about this, the way that he described it, I think Coleman turned him onto this, or they both really enjoyed this. And I started to listen to it, and I got really hooked. So I was streaming it for a long time, waiting for the reissue, and finally it came out, and just love this record. As the title suggests, it's got some elements of kind of Eastern music, some just beautiful jazz playing, and this is a wonderful record. Eastern Sounds, Yusef Lateef. And I don't remember who recommended this, but Michael 45 had a guest on. And he talked about Roger Eno, and of course, brother to Brian Eno. I know him by name, but I don't know his music at all. But again, the way he described this record made me give it a listen, and I immediately went out and got it, and I really, really enjoy it. So this is Roger Eno, The Skies, They Shift Like Chords. I think the title gives you kind of a pretty good idea of what this sounds like. It's on the Deutsche Grammophon label. It is a beautiful sounding record. It is one of my favorite It's a Rainy Day or It's Sunday Morning records. You know, it's one of the ones that I'll start the day with. It's a great album to read to. Just gorgeous atmospheric stuff. It's not really ambient. It's more, I don't know if you'd call it chamber music, or, but very strings oriented, and just an excellent record. So the gentleman who was on that episode talking about their favorite releases of 2023 with Michael 45, I don't remember who you were, but you got me hooked. Thank you very much. So you are all enablers. All kidding aside, there's nothing like hearing people that you respect talk about music and turn you on to stuff that you've never heard of. And it's my main source of new things, and I can suddenly go down rabbit holes of artists that I find I didn't know anything about one day, and then weeks later, they're suddenly one of my favorite artists that I want to listen to over and over again. So thank you very much. We'll see if I can kind of slow down my purchasing and do deeper dives and deeper listens. Carpe diem. MFs.